Awesome. So welcome again. My name is Allison Rollins, and I am a birth doula, a postpartum doula, as well as an infant feeding specialist, a positive parenting facilitator, and a placenta encapsulator. My goal really is just to help supply families with the information that they need to be able to make those choices when they're moving into parenthood, and to help support them with the right information to make the choices that they need that's right for their family. Well, if I can get into my thing here. How many of you are due coming up soon? Go ahead and type that into the chat bar. We'd love to hear more about your journey. If you've already created your birth plan and are just looking for different ways to be able to change and adjust that to make it work best for you, or just wanting to learn more about your options when it comes to birth. Let's see. Awesome. So welcome again. Today's webinar is learning how to create your birth plan. And I'm Allison Rollins, and let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad that you're here. If you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat bar. We love questions. We want to make sure that we give you evidence-based research and understanding of what your options are as you're moving into through your pregnancy and into getting closer to your birth. So when you get started with thinking about creating your birth plan, you've already kind of probably decided on who's going to be that support team for you during your birth. And a birth plan really is not only to consider what you want, it's also to consider what your partner might be interested in, or what do they think about what their role is going to be in birth, and how they want that to go, not only for you, but also for your baby. Having those conversations with your partner can really help you be on the same page as you're moving into your birth. And ideally, the birth plan can also be a tool to help communicate that with the rest of your birth team. I have to take 1 second because I realize I think I might have left my toaster oven on. Hold on 1 second. Thanks, everybody. Today has been an interesting holiday, and I lead a group called Babes on Blankets, which is for first-time parents or new parents with babies in that first year. And so I kind of came straight from there. And anyway, one thing important to do, we don't want to burn the house down. So glad that you guys are here. Share with us in the chat bar what questions you have, what concerns you might have as far as creating your birth plan, and the questions that surround that. When we teach our childbirth education class, we supply our couples with a really detailed understanding of what a birth plan might look like, how to create a very succinct and simple birth plan so that you can easily share that with your birth team, at the same time including all the information that may be super important to be able to glance at in a short time. If you have, you're at the hospital for, a long time, you may have a longer birth, and you may have several different nurses who come through during that time. And a birth plan can really supply those nurses with a look at who you are, what your goals are, special ways that you want to be supported. And it's really a wonderful tool for those people who really want to be able to support you well, and have a really short, quick amount of time to be able to get to know you. Awesome. So Again, just understanding what a birth plan is. It is really a carefully kind of thought out, tailored plan written by the parents to be, which really details your preferences for ideal circumstances. Some people call it a birth wish as well, birth wishes. So there's lots of different names that we have. This can be typed up, written out, however you want to. Typically, it's best to keep it in a short version, something that can be looked at and doesn't have to be spend a lot of time on, especially if this birth plan is going to the hospital with you. Occasionally I'll tell clients of mine who I am their labor doula, I'll be like, if you have a couple pages of birth plan to share with me, I'm going to have time to sit down with you and look over that and ask questions and make sure that I understand what your goals are. But a nurse in a hospital doesn't have that time. And sometimes your provider in the hospital setting may not have that time, because the provider that you have helping support you at your birth may not be a provider that you see in the last part of your pregnancy and your prenatals. So those are just a couple of things to really consider. Giving details of what happens if things happen, what you would like to take place. It can help to have a plan well prepared in advance, and have some of those elements kind of what if scenarios. If this happens, I would like this to happen. And remember, this is an ideal situation. This is sort of, I wouldn't say like a mutual agreement, but it's often a tool that you can take into your provider's practice to kind of have a conversation of like, okay, this is what I would like ideally. Is this something that I can achieve at this birthing facility? What on this list do you see could be a problem? What can I do to make sure that I achieve this? Are there any recommendations that you have to help me achieve this goal that I really have? So it's a really good tool, and a lot of parents really sometimes have a hard time remembering what their questions are when they go into their prenatals. Like you think about it, I know I had a question for you, but I can't think of what it is right now. So having a written birth plan can sometimes stimulate that conversation, and it gives them something to look at. A lot of providers will stick this in your chart for you so that the other providers that see you can also have access to that. So we're really just trying to get our birthing team on the same page about what your goals are. And sometimes it's hard in the short time that we have with our providers to really let them get to know us in a way. So this kind of helps complement that. I'm going to give you sort of the elements of what a birth plan is and help you to structure it exactly as you please, and kind of explain some of the finer details about why each element is important. And it will be helpful for you to have a notebook to kind of jot down some things if you're interested. All right. Confidence, positivity, and control. One aspect really of having a birth plan in place from early on in the pregnancy is it allows the mother to assert a sense of control over the situation. A lot of things about pregnancy and birth can feel out of our hands. And so it's really nice to say like, this, I can take control of this. I can make these decisions or have these kind of like desires, and make decisions about what might happen for me and what might happen for my baby. So while pregnancy is naturally unpredictable and often subject to an endless number of environmental factors, right? By clarifying your desire in a birth plan, you're automatically boosting your confidence, right? And you're also cultivating a more positive outlook on the whole experience. And for a woman who has gone through birth 3 times, and I have supported tons of women with understanding that lack of control and how our outlook can really have a huge impact on our birthing experience, and that trust that we build with our providers can really make a difference. Think about what you would need in place to feel confident about giving birth. As distant as the possibility might seem, it is possible to achieve a higher level of confidence in yourself and your body by making some changes to your physical environment. So kind of think about what would it take to make you feel more comfortable about your birthing experience. Miscommunication. The great thing really about having a clear, concise birth plan is it can help to avoid miscommunication between mother and family members or attendants that are present at your birth. As we've discussed, really like sort of those, I don't know, elevated levels of stress can cause our hormones to kind of kick in, and really combining those with the discomfort, physical discomfort, can kind of impact that circumstances, and it can also impact your ability to make decisions. I was teaching childbirth ed on Saturday, and one of the things that I really want partners to understand is that transition that moms make emotionally and in their brains during birth. And it's a shift that moms need to make to be able to be successful in having their babies, especially if their goal is to have vaginal childbirth, is that we have these birth hormones that support and stimulate us to have really wonderful contraction patterns to help push our baby out, to help us feel less pain during birth. There's so many things. I mean, the endocrine system always floors me. I think if I wanted to go back, I could be an endocrinologist. It's just so fascinating. But in general, hormones are super important. And there are times that stress can get in the way of the flow of those. And so when a mom is shifting into active labor, her brain kind of shuts off her critical thinking brain and her communication brain. So she shifts from sort of a chatty situation into what we would call more of a like verbal communication doesn't really come easily to her. So a lot of head nodding and a lot of just communicating with body language. In a birth scenario, I've seen several situations where providers and birthing team have had miscommunications with that for mom because she's unable to communicate that. And there's a shift that takes place where I feel like partners can have a huge role in helping support mom's original goals for birth. As she is in this state, she is not able to communicate. And so as a doula, I often help support dad and mom in her original goals so that dad can share those or be sure that the providers and staff understand what mom's goals are. Because a lot of times mom is unable to verbalize those when she is focusing on birth, and she shouldn't have to. She should be able to do the work of birth without having to have lots of chatty conversations. And sometimes within those conversations, her inability to verbalize her things is also her inability to kind of transmit verbal communication. So partners can be key in helping support mom to ensure that they understand what's going on, to ensure that they know what those things are. And a birth plan can really help you as a couple to be on the same page going forward into that. And it's also key to know like what's going to happen. How are you going to feel? How is that shift going to take place? And I love, love, love talking to partners about that so that they don't get hit like in the face and go, what is wrong with my wife? Is she, like what's going on with her? Why is she acting this way? So it really helps because if they know, they're like, oh yeah, I remember. This is what's happening. And it just normalizes this is normal. And partners for sure love to like know, okay, this is normal. Is this normal? Is this okay? Just that reassurance can be huge. So thinking about all of those different things that can impact birth, we want to be able to talk and communicate with your provider. We want to make sure that all the members of your birth team are aware of your wishes is really vital. And the birth plan really is what's going to happen with that. It's really kind of an agreement. It's not a contract. And it is important also to be aware that a good birthing team will ensure that your plan is followed to the best of their abilities. Usually those circumstances do arise, right, during birthing that might require slight or complete deviation from the plan. So in many instances, we can know that there's going to be deviations from your birth plan. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't create one, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't talk about your ideal birth, because it's dreaming, and we should always have that ability to dream. So within that flexibility of understanding that things might get varied, paths might change, the best birth plan is really kind of a concise but flexible, right? Childbirth is unpredictable, and it's really important to have several options for each stage of your birth. Creating space in your birth plan to list names and titles of those who have made you who you have made aware of your wishes can be helpful in the delivery room. So like noting that dad might be helping communicate some of my support team, my doula, I'm going to have her there, so she's a part of my birth team, and just helping everybody who's going to be supporting you to understand that. All right. Pre-existing medical conditions. For anyone with a pre-existing medical condition, which may be aggravated by or complicate the process of giving birth, it's even more important to have a clear and concise birth plan. We work with a lot of moms who may have high blood pressure, gestational diabetes, group B strep. They may be having more specific kind of things, rarer things that they have going on. So their birth plans are going to look a little different. Speaking with your doctor regarding the potential of complications with childbirth is really vital, and using this advice to then tailor it to your birth plan accordingly is really key. It's important to ensure that all members of your birth team are made aware of the conditions and special treatments or procedures that you may require. So in creating a section of your birth plan, you may want to say potential complications is advised. So that might be something that you want to note. There are a number of common medical conditions which have impacts on pregnancy, childbirth, some of which may not present themselves immediately as a cause for worry. So some of these are going to may not have an impact on your delivery. It's really vital to get a professional opinion, and I tell a lot of moms and dads really that sometimes in your late pregnancy, taking your birth plan into several visits, because you may get differing answers from differing providers. Typically, practice is going to have specific policies, but they may be slight variations into how they respond to that. And I think it's always good to kind of have conversations with different providers so you can see those different perspectives, because a lot of couples really don't know who will be with them to support them in birth. All right. Sample birth plan. So online, if you would Google sample birth plans, you're going to probably come up with a lot. So that's one way to kind of get started. I'm going to share with you some links to a couple of different options for you. And I will email you those after this, so that you can have access to a couple of samples if you haven't already gotten started on your own. To note that some women really like to just kind of jot down things to get started on their own, rather than having a template, and that's okay too. So last night I responded to an email from a mom who had sent her birth plan to me, and she really wanted feedback. And so with my familiarity with the providers and the birthing facility that she is going to be having her baby at, I wanted to ensure that she knew that she understood what the policies were there. And oftentimes couples will write down things that they might desire, but if that desire is a standard practice at that hospital, and they do that with every delivery, then it's really not important that you include that in there. But if they want something that is not standard practice there at that birthing facility, then they might need to have that conversation with their provider. And so I often help support couples with kind of editing that. Your providers are also going to kind of give you an insight in that so that you can have more understanding if you're going to be able to achieve different aspects. And because you may have different health situations than your friend, it's nice to be able to have those feedback from your doulas and providers. All right, so time to write your birth plan. I hope that this will get you going if you haven't already gotten started, and I hope that it has been like useful for you. I'm going to email you guys lots of fun resources so you can kind of take a look at things. And I really invite you to now go back over kind of what you've written down so far and use those notes as well as the resources that I'm going to send to you. With writing your birth plan, I would encourage you to be realistic. So don't overlook or avoid any potentialities. Concise. So using as few words as possible, right? So this is like script notes, like short, to the point, and kind as possible to translate your desires, right? And thorough. Think about before your birth, during, and the birthing process, okay? When I am, let me share, I'll go ahead and share this with you guys. I'm gonna stop. Let's see if I can escape this real quick. And I'm gonna go into, let's see, birth plan. Make sure I got this. Wrong one, sorry. Okay, let me go to this and bring up. Great. All right, so this is one of our sheets that I will send with you. Oh, this is the wrong one, so sorry. Let's see, cesarean and birth copy. Here it is. So this tool right here is one of the most helpful tools that we have created for couples. And it's a double-sided document. It's talking about writing your effective birth plan. So I'll send this all to you, but it does really help you to kind of lay out a general idea of what you want into a one-page. So there's a header, right, that starts, this is going to be your name, your partner's name, any labor support person like your doula or your mom, your blood type, your due date, and your care provider. An introduction. Introductions are key because a lot of these people who are going to be caring for you throughout your labor and birth may have never met you. And this is just an insight like who you are. Thank you so much for being here to support me through this. These are my goals. I look forward to, having you alongside me as we go through this as our first birth of our baby or whatever. So those are just kind of that gratitude and appreciation, and this is me and these are my goals. And then also checking in, getting familiar with check-in procedures, check in upon admittance. So these kind of things can be really important. If, for example, you wanted to delay a saline heparin lock and your facility was okay with that, or if you felt like you should be able to have some food and drink. So some facilities are going to allow that and others are not. Some are going to, most facilities will allow you to wear your own clothes. Some facilities will allow you to have intermittent monitoring or remote monitoring. Some, depending on your health situation, you may not be allowed to do that. So there's just lots of different options within there. And remember, you're looking at ideal, like what would I want if this is my ideal birth? And then once you take this into your provider and have conversations, and you may make some edits, or if you're going to share this with your doula, then she may have some suggestions for you. So the next section would be labor options. And we're really looking here is like, what types of things do you want to use to help you get through early labor and active labor? What kind of support is going to be helpful for you? What kind of things do you want in your room? Do you want low lighting? Would you like music? Would you like to have more people in your room and you love to be surrounded by your family? Or do you not want anybody in there but you and your partner? So those kind of things can be really great. So these are this is an important section. And then the second section, or the next section, excuse me, would be what are your preferences with your pushing or second stage? Do you have a real desire to be on hands and knees when you push your baby out? Do you want to not feel anything when you're pushing? Making sure that epidural is working really well, right? So yeah, there's just lots to consider in there. And this is just your journey and your choice. So really think about what that might look like. If you don't have an idea of what you think you might like, talk to people, talk to your doula, ask questions like, what's it like to push with an epidural versus pushing with, no medications? How are those different? What are the benefits and the risk? That kind of stuff. After birth options. So a lot of these will have to do with your baby, what's going to be offered. So I will also send you guys an information about what is typical as far as routine medications given to babies. And I'll send this to you in my email. So you'll have that. And then also unexpected outcomes. When I teach childbirth ed, I ideally would love to talk about what does it look like to have an induction? What to expect with that? If you have a cesarean birth after 20 hours of labor, what is that going to look like, and what to expect with that? How can dads be helpful with that? How can you make that as smooth as possible in that situation? What are your options? What choices do you have when it comes to cesarean birth? So it's important to kind of talk about that. I do have a webinar on cesarean birth, and I think that you might find that really interesting. We also have an upcoming webinar on inductions. So check out our website to look more at what to expect with inductions, because especially for first-time parents, I think that is one of it can be a really common thing. And I never want you to feel like, oh my gosh, what in the world is happening? And like, I don't know anything about this. I feel out of control. I think that it really helps your emotional state to kind of have an understanding of what that might look like for you and what your choices are if you do end up having an induction or a cesarean belly birth. And to be able to create as much understanding of how you could make that the best, and how to understand the recovery. That is another key thing. So I am so glad that you guys joined me today for this. I'll go back to my lovely birth plan. Thank you so much for being here with me. Again, if you have any questions, you can call us at 828-278-8949 or email us at info@highcountrydoulas.com. We want to be able to answer your questions or connect you with the resources that you need to feel prepared for your birth. And congratulations, and wishing you all the best on your journey. And thanks for joining us today. If anybody has any questions, I will answer those for you. Going to stop sharing.